Hello, Savannah. Welcome to another edition of Kandily Kesha. We are so excited to be here with you tonight. We have Senator Lester Jackson, candidate for Labor Commissioner, joining us this evening, and he will talk about his tenure as state senator, and we will hear from him as to what his plans, hopes, and platform is as the new candidate for Labor Commissioner. It is a tight field, somewhat, and one would think that moving from senator to this level is probably not a natural progression, but weird things are happening in politics, and people are just finding their rightful place in service. And so, some of what I would be interested to know is essentially what people ask me about, and that is what led me to politics. I recently was deposed in my civil suit, and one of the questions was, why did I run for office? And quite simply, it wasn't necessarily my choice. It wasn't something that I'd ever planned for, hoped for, or dreamed of. It was nothing I ever was attracted to. I actually kind of abhor politics and politicians. The whole thought, why did I run for office? The whole thought of raising money for politics was my first aversion, because for decades I raised money for charitable missions, seeking to keep the doors open and provide services to those who were homeless, hopeless, in despair, and in lack in our community, from victims to individuals who were nutrition insecure. And I could not imagine now asking for money for a billboard or commercial or yard signs. Yuck. In addition to the whole thought of the environmental disaster that campaigning and signage provides, it was just not very welcoming to me in terms of my philosophy. And so, what I find myself now doing is recognizing that some things you just have to do. For a long time, we entered every area of the campaign with an opening speech acknowledging that I was not a politician and declaring that I was a public servant. And I think that's what's so problematic with me in this particular office now, because I don't see much servitude. There aren't a lot of examples, I should say, of individuals who present themselves selfless in service. And when you think about leadership, I have always lived by the notion of being a servant first with regard to leadership, because as a leader, it's not you who are often making the decisions and doing the work. It's people who you are guiding, people who you are recruiting, people who you are encouraging to stay with you, to stay with the mission. And in that regard, you first have to be a servant to those who are working alongside you, as well as a servant to the mission and the people of which you serve. And so, with that said, just dialing it back a little bit, there were a set of circumstances that essentially forced me out of my career and out of my job that I had no control over. And this came on the cuff of a stellar record of performance. For a number of years, I had been regarded as this nonprofit guru of sorts, in that I had a keen ability to come into organizations and turn them around or help them expand. And in short order, that proved to be true in every capacity I worked in. And it wasn't through my own efforts, but it was the efforts of others who signed on to the mission by way of volunteership or board membership or as staffers. And it was through those relationships that we were able to galvanize a group of citizens to believe in a mission, to uphold a mission, and to work for it. But I found myself amidst politics, a political structure that I did not even recognize. I didn't really know I was actually being political. And the first political candidate I provide assistance and service to because of my background and because of my experience, I saw where these politicians who were really savvy in their quest to get elected, they knew who to connect with. And so, because I had established relationships with a very diverse group of citizens in our community, a lot of which who were wealthy people in our community. First was Larry Chisholm, who was running for district attorney, and in short order, yes, the answer was yes. I'd worked with him for a number of years and thought he would make a great candidate. It was nice to be able to support the first African American male district attorney for Chatham County Eastern Judicial Circuit. It's kind of crazy that in 2009 we were just having our first African American as district attorney. But anyway, only to walk into within a matter of months a situation that was out of my control. And I won't go into details. You can Google it. Some know the story. And it was a nightmare pretty much. And so after progressing from there, I moved on to supporting Meg Heap, the first female Republican district attorney. And for me, you can now see a pattern that I have no respect of person, friendship, relationship, or party affiliation with regard to who I support. I align myself with people who present themselves accordingly, and you always start where people are. And so, with regard to that, I did so in both capacities unapologetically, and given my support to them, and however they used it, right? And so there's an adage that goes, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And so for me, the shame on me doesn't come very often because yes, I did prevail. I see things for what they are. And when people show you who they are the first time, there's another adage that goes, believe them. And so I believe that, and I knew how to bow out gracefully. But what people should know, for those who think they know the story or might have followed it, what they should know is I was the person who made the decision to sever ties and to remove myself from the relationship, not because of any personal feelings or indifference, but essentially because of the work, because of the mission, because we could not get the work done, because we could not get the job done. And so, in not getting the work done, I'm not as inclined to break bread, have wine and cheese, talk about hair, nails, and children when we are falling short on the watch of people who are hurting, particularly when that's how you are earning a paycheck. I've always struggled in my nonprofit work with getting paid to do the job, albeit not a whole bunch. But I feel like when you do the jobs that I did, we all should be a part of mission work in some capacity. So if you hear me tonight, Savannah is filled with tons of worthwhile charitable organizations. I should say tons of volunteer roles in many charitable organizations in our community. And so if you have the time, if you don't have the time, if you can find the time to devote a couple of hours a month, a week, whether it's in the capacity of serving as a treasurer on a board, working in a soup kitchen, driving a homeless organization van, whatever capacity that organization may be able to utilize your talent, don't hesitate to get involved because these organizations depend on volunteer services. In fact, if you were to attach a dollar figure to many of their volunteer hours, it would probably nearly double or triple their budgets. So here's a shout out to all of my nonprofit executive directors. Keep doing what you're doing. We know how difficult it is. Nonprofit leadership is probably one of the hardest jobs ever because oftentimes you find yourself as a one woman or one man show. You have to write the grants, crunch the data, justify your mission, be the spokesperson, the face and the voice of the organization, manage the staff, organize the fundraiser. You wear many, many hats, and I know how difficult it is. One of the things that I have been advocating for here at the City of Savannah through our grant dollars that we allocate to our nonprofit organizations is that we stop making these nonprofit organizations compete for money that essentially is due to them. The City of Savannah should not create competitive grant processes for organizations where they themselves need the services. So taking case for the Rape Crisis Center. The Rape Crisis Center services is an essential service. The police department, many of the municipalities surrounding Chatham County, cannot function as they investigate a rape case without the Rape Crisis Center. So by virtue of its mission with regard to the collection of forensics evidence, they are an essential service. In as much as they provide direct counseling support, they oftentimes are a first responder in tandem with the police department. They are an essential service. So why would you make a nonprofit organization compete for those dollars? Same with homelessness, with homeless services. We would have many people sleeping on the streets of Savannah. We would have many people sleeping in their cars. We will have many people subjected and susceptible to street crime and other vulnerabilities if it were not for our shelter programs. We would have children who are not able to enjoy a warm meal and a good night's sleep in a safe space if it were not for our handful of family shelters. It's shameful that still today, 20 years later, after exiting that continuum, we still only have the same few family shelters in this city. Homelessness among families with children is the fastest growing sector in our nation. The average age of a homeless person is 9 years old. And so we have to rely on those services. So why are we flexing our power and making those nonprofit organizations depend on us through a competitive grant process when we can simply allocate the dollars per unit that they provide? And so at some juncture, we really have to be more smart about our local government. We really have to be less punitive when it comes to how we are deciding where we deem value in our community. And so what was I getting at there? I was getting at why I ran for office and how nonprofit work was so difficult and what a great job I did. Listen, if you can't toot your own horn, nobody else will. So you better toot it when you can. Get you a Facebook platform and toot your horn. That's what you do. So through those set of circumstances that sort of forced me out of my position as I found myself unbeknowingly caught up in this whole political world, even not being a political person, but because politicians were trying to calculate on my capital, my capital in terms of my people. And we've had some people here who are serving in politics today who did the same thing, to have individuals align themselves with you during the campaign season, ring your phone off the hook, want all of your data, want all of your knowledge. My husband is the brainchild behind my campaign. And so I've even extended him to those individuals and allowed them to pick his brain, only to have those individuals now occupy offices and sort of distance themselves from you, like you never existed. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. But like I said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, it will never happen. So I found myself here. I found myself here because as I set out to apply for additional jobs, I found that those individuals, those political giants, were also creeping their little heads in places where I was applying for work. So even the jobs that I knew I could be a walk-in, a shoe-in, or should have gotten, I didn't even get an interview. That's the breaking news. That's the breaking news. Yes. The person who taught resume writing, professionalism, and um, basically help these organizations raise money and build their programming. And I couldn't even get an interview for some of the jobs. And then for the jobs that I did get an interview for, to be held to a higher level of scrutiny was pretty distasteful. But we're here. We're still here, smiling. I have to paste it on sometimes, but it's still a smile, right? And that's what you have to do. You have to get up, dust yourself off, and smile through it. Smile through it. Anyway, even in the midst of it all, you don't have to look like what you're going through at all, at all. And the other secret is you don't even have to fake it. You don't have to fake it. But we know that sometimes in getting through and getting by, you do have to. Um, let's see, I'm trying to communicate with Senator Jackson here. You do have to get through it. And that's what I want to do for you all tonight, in addition to speaking to Senator Jackson, is just to encourage you. Encourage you to get through it. As I was going through my challenge and my struggle, if you can imagine just having your career and your job snatched from you overnight, and not know what the next steps are going to be or what the next steps to take. And I know that, there are a lot of people who this has happened to, and they haven't been able to bounce back. They haven't been able to walk into something else. But even in walking into this something else, I should tell you that this isn't really what it looks like. The role of elected office, it looks glamorous. I know we have motivated a community of people, and I'm so proud of that. We were able to motivate a community of people to rise up and run for office, but it's really difficult. And so, what I want to leave you with tonight is recognizing that as people set out to look for political office, hopefully it won't be a set of circumstances that sort of led me here. Maybe it'll be a more seamless, like what Dr. Senator Lester Jackson will tell us, in that it has more of a natural progression in terms of your goals. But one of the things you have to know is when you seek elected office, do not simply seek to run for office, but seek to run to serve. Run to serve. And don't lose sight of the mission. And you can't be moved by the madness of some of the people who you'll meet along the way, and even once you're in. Because the toughest challenge for me, I shared more recently with people, is really difficult to fight for the people. Explain to the people why you're fighting. Explain that you can't take a Nerf gun to a gun battle. You can't take a Nerf gun to a gunfight, and then explain why you are taking the path you're taking. So, but you have to be called, you have to be driven, and it has to be purposeful, deliberate, and authentic. And with that, I think we will find ourselves where Dr. Senator Lester Jackson is, sir. And so my first question for you tonight is, I should first thank you for joining me and being here and taking time out of your busy schedule. We all know that you do double duty as an elected servant as well as a local doctor here in Savannah. And so we want to know, what was it that first inspired you to run for elected office? And was senator your first post?
Well, first of all, Ms. Gibson Card, I'd like to thank you for giving me the honor to be a part of your show. This is indeed an enlightful show, and you've been doing a wonderful job. This is a difficult time for me, and I'd like to first pause to say that we've lost a great leader and community servant, and my good friend Mickey Stevens, who served with me in the Georgia General Assembly for quite some time. And before that, we were great friends. So his homegoing services is Wednesday. So give a prayer and to the family of a good servant leader of Chatham County, my good friend, State Representative Mickey Stevens. So yes, I'm a lot like you. I was listening earlier. I got in politics really early because I got mad. I got mad with what was going on, and I said I was trying to right a wrong. So back in the late 90s, I was president of a local fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, and we expanded it to a community program called Guide Right. We adopted a school and we was going to guide young people in the right direction. And so I took on this task of guiding young men at a school called Spencer Elementary School, fifth and sixth graders. And a long story short, um, um, at a banquet, I was telling the parents how I was going to take these fifth and sixth graders and move them through middle school, move them to high school, and move them to into and follow them into college, giving college tours and making sure they all get into college. And some mothers walked up to me after that. I thought I gave that great speech, and said, "Dr. Jackson, thank you for that wonderful speech. Thank you for taking time with our kids, but our children aren't college material. Our kids need technical jobs. You know, my boy want to be an electrician. I had one kid want to be a bricklayer. One wanted to be a truck driver, and we want you to help our kids do that." So, with that in mind, I went to the school board and I asked that we have the feeder school of Spencer Elementary School at the time, which was Savannah High, that we introduce technical and vocational skills not only to my young 24 young men that play basketball and my mentees, but for all the students. uh, the school board told me they didn't have any money to do that. I said, "Well, where do you go for to get the money?" He said, you go to the state." At that time, the current elected officials putting money toward technical and vocational education wasn't high on their priority. So I made it high on my priority, and I ran. And uh, with a lot of that going on, we have gotten several dollars for technical education. In my 20 plus years in the General Assembly, we established Woodville Tompkins, who's doing a wonderful job. But there have been more programs for adult and technical education because one young lady, Laura Bonaparte, said that their children wasn't college material, and she wanted me to do something about it. So I'm happy to be a part of the show, but that's how I got started. I got mad and and I was committed to right or wrong.
And what year was that?
That was in 1998 when I ran, and it was only and when I ran, I thought that it would be a 6-year project to gather enough uh, support to put a vocational wing on then Savannah High School. And I told my family and my wife and my friends that it'll probably take me about 6 years to get that $7 million to put a wing on Savannah High School. The short answer is I learned a lot about politics in those 6 years. The short answer is in 4 years I got that commitment to put a wing on it, and only thing I had to do, and the design money was appropriated into the budget. And usually, as at work, the design money, which was 10% of well, I think $700,000, and then after that, we come the construction money. And the only thing that had to happen was the current governor had to get reelected. And guess what didn't happen? The governor didn't get reelected, and my
He didn't
project
get.
got lost. So, and it took 10 more years. No, it took a dozen more years to get that money back in the budget to go toward adult and technical education. By that time, I was a state senator. So instead of having a district support, I had more of a regional approach. So Woodville Tompkins, a comprehensive school that was a feeder school for all high schools, was just became a better play.
And so we also want to note that you have also been working on the collegiate level uh, as a senator to help with some of our HBCUs. And we know that a little bit of that was a controversial. And I always tell you that I believe it was a breakdown in communication, or the lack of communication, I should say. But you've also worked to help some of our HBCUs offer terminal degrees, as well as become uh, places and spaces where students can matriculate in law school as well. I think you may have muted yourself. I can't hear you. I'm not going to ask you the hard part of that question. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Let's give him a minute here. Okay, so one of the things I was going to ask Senator Jackson about is his work on the collegiate level with some of our HBCUs, helping them to offer law degrees as well as terminal degrees. There aren't many HBCU institutions that offer PhD programs. There we go.
Are you better now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Wow.
Yes.
I want to do that again.
It was nice seeing that younger, good-looking version of yourself.
Well, he eats a lot. But
so we were talking about some of the work that you have been striving to do that I'm aware of on the collegiate level, in that you've worked to extend offerings of terminal degrees for HBCUs as well as law schools for HBCUs.
Well, I pride myself in tackling tough issues and bringing tough issues to the surface so that we as African Americans know what we're dealing with, know that we as African Americans are lacking in fundings in certain schools, in certain institutions, especially historically Black colleges and universities. What many of you don't know is that Georgia is the only state that does not have a terminal degree for historical Black colleges and universities.
And when we say terminal degree, that's offering of a PhD program.
PhD or a PhD, law degree, veterinarian degree, MD degree, engineering degree. If you should go to Florida, Florida A&M has a law school and a pharmacy school. Louisiana has a pharmacy school at Xavier University. Louisiana has a law school. North Carolina has an engineering school, and we can go on and on. You name a state that has a historically Black college, and they have a terminal degree for its institution, except Georgia.
Wow.
Except Georgia.
Say that again, Senator. Say that again. I want people to really understand this, because I want folks, one of the things I talk about a lot on my show is empowering our citizens and encouraging them to engage. And this is an area where we can essentially empower them and encourage them to engage and to provide assistance in helping to shape how we go about our future education with our HBCUs. Now, say that one more time, sir.
Georgia is the only state in the nation that doesn't provide a terminal degree for its historical Black colleges and universities. I'm going to give you some examples. If you go to the state of Alabama, there is a veterinarian school called Tuskegee University. You go to Florida, Florida A&M has a law school and a pharmacy school. You go to the state of Louisiana, they have a law school in Southern University. They have a pharmacy school in Xavier University. You go to North Carolina, you have a engineering school. So many states offer their historically Black colleges terminal degrees. And another interesting thing about Georgia is that their historical Black colleges don't carry the name of their state. And I know that doesn't mean a lot, all right? But we don't have a historical Black college that carries the name of its state. We did have one, but it was taken away. You look at South Carolina State University. Where is South Carolina State University? It's a historical Black college, but where is it located? South Carolina. North Carolina A&T, Tennessee State University, Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Florida A&M University. So most states, their historical Black colleges carry their name, but in Georgia, our historical black colleges carry a regional name. You know, the Savannah State University, a regional name. Albany State University, a regional name. Fort Valley State University, a regional name. And I was trying, and it was my goal to bring attention to this, to let people know what other states are doing, and how there is racist attitudes that prevents African Americans to get their just due. And one of those things happens to be terminal degrees. I fought really hard so that Savannah State could have the opportunity to have a law school. Give a competitive advantage to historical black college to recruit young men and young women to get law degrees. But I have brought tough issues to the forefront. Not only with that, I brought another tough issue to allow historically black schools to get um, need-based scholarships for their students. And it's so vitally important that historically black colleges get need-based scholarship, because without need-based scholarships, a lot of young people won't have the opportunity to go to historically black schools. So when you tackle tough issues and you bring tough issues to bear, people start talking. And some of them haven't been popular. And I could talk about one issue that has not been popular. When I introduced legislation 3 years ago to take the three historically black universities out of the university system, so we develop our own region system, and not I believe separate and equal is a better option. But we know that when it comes to funding, the historical black colleges for like funding far less than historically white institutions. So when we bring tough issues to the surface, good things happen. When we talk about the regions, the Board of Regents only have one African American uh, Regents member out of 19 in a state that's 30% black. Something is wrong with that picture. So it's been sort of a crusade and a love for me to bring difficult issues to the surface so we know who we're working with.
And that's a very tough one. And a lot of those goals were birthed out of the fact that there was a strong disparity in the formula that's used to allocate resources to white institutions versus African American institutions. And that was somewhat of a strategy to sort of backdoor your way into getting more money for those HBCUs, not to take away the identity at all. And so we're hopeful that in the future we can still not revisit it in its wholeness, but at least touch on it and sort of digest some of those pieces. But if we don't have you in the Senate, and we will have you as our state labor commissioner, that's what I want to segue into now. Who's going to take up that charge? I'm a little bit selfish. I'm a tiny bit selfish as a newly elected city representative here in Savannah. It has been a pleasure to work alongside you. I know I have been one of those people who give you a hard time, but you basically, as a professional, I think we have agreed to disagree on things and still exercise great decorum toward each other. And I appreciate the time that you have taken with me to sort of show me the ropes, offer information and education on the state level, and help me to identify some of the deficiencies that exist here in our municipality where our relationships are concerned at the state level. So at this juncture, I would certainly hate to lose you, but with your experience, with your connections, with your background, and with your passion, I think you would make a great labor commissioner, especially during this tumultuous time we find ourselves in as a working people. We have many people who are on unemployment, trying to get those benefits, keep those benefits, start those benefits. And there's been a lot of mishaps in the midst of that, and we get several calls. And so we have people from all walks of life, all demographics, who are struggling in Georgia, in this great state, as you like to say. And so, as labor commissioner, what are you hoping to bring to the table different? But also, is there anything that you are hopeful of that you can accomplish while you're still a state senator?
Well, first of all, I would like to tell you that for far too long, Georgia working families have struggled to make ends meet, while underfunded and a directionless labor department has put delays on many Georgians in paying their claims, have put delays on their unemployment benefits, and now it's time for a labor commissioner that cares for his people, that's going to open the doors for the labor department 5 days a week. When you call the labor department, have someone answer the phone and come up with these these technological advances so that people can fill out applications and fill out their pay claims online and get a response. It is no it makes no sense to, to have our labor departments continue to be closed so people can, we need to have the doors open so people can go in person to address their needs. Many Georgians are suffering, not only in the second senatorial district, not only in Chatham County, but across Georgia. People are suffering and their benefits are being delayed. And we need somebody that cares in the labor department office. We need somebody in the labor department office that's going to inspire people to open up doors and treat them as great citizens and that deserve the benefits. Georgia is a rich state, but we only as rich as its people. So I pledge that I'm going to do my best to make sure the doors are open and that people get their money. In fact, I'm going to be the labor commissioner so people can get their money. So I'm honored to go on this new venture. But I'm going to tell you this: I think politicians should be like crops. Every once in a while, they should rotate.
Mm.
I think politicians sometimes get stagnant in office for too long, and people have passions, and my passion is to help folks, and that's what I've been doing my entire life. And I think this is a new venture so that I can actually go out and help people around this entire state.
And you come from a family of helpers. I remember your mom being in the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority when I first came home from
Oh,
college.
really?
She was one of the members who welcomed me, and so I remember her work in the community. And now your sister, if you're cut from the same cloth as your sister, Sonia Jackson, our tax commissioner, she's doing a wonderful job, stellar performance to date, with some of the new advances she's made and the open door policy that she has. I understand that staff rapport and relations are better than ever before. The office is operating and functioning at a professional standard
Mhm.
like never before. And so, if you only listen to your sister, I think you'll do a good job.
Well, she's doing a wonderful job. She's giving a lot of opportunities to a lot of people. And let me tell you this, and I don't want to boast about my sister, but I must say this. What she's done that no one's ever done was allow people the ability to pay on their taxes if they don't have all the money up front. What she did was being able to have people keep their property, keep their land. So what happens is people are priced out of or taxed out of their property, taxed out of their homes because they can't come up with all the money up front. She has allowed hundreds of people in Chatham County to make monthly payments on their taxes so that they can keep their property. So, and I applaud her for that. And so, but the good thing is that people are not losing their homes to big government enterprises to be sold back to rich folks. So I applaud her for that action. And there are going to be other innovative things that's going to come up when it comes to the tax commissioner in Chatham County.
Well, we are excited to have her in that position and are grateful for the wonderful changes she has made. I want to give you an opportunity to tell people why and when they can vote for you as labor commissioner. But before that, I want to talk about, just for a brief minute or two, something that was very controversial here in Savannah. And again, I want to just tell the local public here how helpful Senator Jackson has been, and how committed he is to doing the right thing, even when it's not popular in politics. And that right thing was his vote and decision making during our hotel motel tax requests to the state. And that hotel motel tax, Senator Jackson, give us a little bit of background on what kind of money that brings in, and how we were looking to divide those funds, and why. Well, I know what we requested of you, and it wasn't for us, but we were asking you to give consideration to the community as a whole. And so, as a member of the delegation, can you tell us what the thinking was among you and your colleagues?
Let me go back a little bit. If my memory serves me correctly, there were two people in um, of the Savannah City Council that requested some additional funds, and they thought, well, it could have been four people that requested additional funds.
It was four.
Looking for ways to find additional funds, and we thought increasing the hotel motel tax might be a great way of increasing benefits to Chatham County. That idea was pushed away for a year and said that was a bad idea. But surprisingly, next year, another group came up with that same idea to increase the hotel motel tax from 6% to 8%. And and everybody thought, and a lot of people thought it was a great idea. Uh, uh, but when I looked at it, and I look at every issue, I ask three things: how much money are we talking about? Who does it hurt? And where does the money go? Okay. How much money are we talking about? Was raising the hotel motel tax from 6% to 8% is a revenue generator of $60 million a year.
Mhm.
$60 million. And that money is generated from the hotels around the city of Savannah. And that's 60 million the first year. But as we build more and more hotels, and we will, that $60 million a year can easily raise to $100 million a year. And that money was divided up into many things, until several organizations. Some went to the city of Savannah, some went to Visit Savannah, some went to the chamber, and a couple of other organizations. But I looked, of this $60 million, I asked the question: how much of this money is going to the inner city or to the African American community? And when I looked at the numbers, I could count how much money went to African American organizations or went to inner city organizations, and I can tell you that number in two fingers. You see that?
Mm.
It wasn't much that was going to African American organizations. I thought a city that is 50% African American, at least some of that money should go to African American organizations that's going to promote tourism, and that's going to support and end the blight in the city of Savannah. And I didn't get the right answers. I didn't get the right answers. I didn't get the right support. So I was hesitant to sign on to some legislation that wasn't going to reduce the blight in Savannah, Georgia, that wasn't going to talk about increasing the minimum wage for people in Savannah, Georgia, toward a livable wage, not support a measure of the $60 million for not just 1 year, not just 2 years, but forever, that wasn't going to include any organization any organization that had a minority uh, goal to help the minority community in our city. And because I'm gonna tell you, there's a large group of minorities that visit Savannah and uses our hotels and uses this tax, but because this city is based on tourism, and we get so much tourism, but also 27% of the people in this city live below the poverty line. I think some of that money should go back to help the least of us. So I
I
was
do too.
hesitant to vote and push that idea. Many of the delegation was supportive of the idea, uh, but in the local delegation, the senator, both senators have to agree. So in consequence, I had the veto vote. So I told them last year was not the time to talk about hotel motel tax increase because well, and also it was a pandemic. Hotels were suffering a year ago, and to put another tax on them might be the reason conventions don't come to Savannah and may go to Charleston or may go to Atlanta or to Jacksonville. And now wasn't the time to put an extra burden on the hotels and motels in the greater Savannah area.
I agree. It is a two-edged sword, but I'm
Oh, I'm
hopeful.
sorry, but by the way, I think that was Keisha Gibson Carter idea for a hotel motel tax. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but the division of it was just not fair. So I'm glad you made the decision you made. And so going forward, I know that there's some maneuvering and conversation about um, introducing this again. And it will be my hope that this time, and again, you were very gracious in wanting to know if we, the minority three on council, were at the table. And I think that had a lot to do with the decision as well, when there was no proof that there was continuity or collaboration among the members of council on this. And so I want you to look for that again when this is presented to you again. And the second thing I want you to give consideration to is this big elephant in the room right now. There's nothing more important to me in this city now than crime in the weeping time. And I would like to see, as the Weeping Time Coalition continue to take strides and make strides to preserve that land and to prove that it is, in fact, the site of the largest slave sale, auction sale in the history of America. We want there to be some evidence of some semblance of support from this hotel motel tax to create a tourism product where the weeping time piece is concerned. So we can have a larger conversation. And I'm thinking of another show as I'm talking to you, because that small bit that you gave us is just not enough for me to feel comfortable with being able to offer information to my listening audience. So I wanted to put that hook in there for the weeping time. And I know how you feel about preserving the weeping time land. So whatever room you have where the hotel motel tax is concerned, we hope that that can be interjected there. Now, finally, I want to use these last few minutes, and then I also want to just make mention of the fact that we know, I'm sure you know, as you were speaking of terminal degrees for HBCUs in Georgia, we were talking about public institutions. We know that Morehouse offers medical school, as well as Clark Atlanta offers some, but those are private schools. But the state run institutions where our tax dollars pay for this, a great deal of African American tax dollars as well. So in closing, Senator Jackson, and you have to promise me to come back. See, I wasn't so hard on you tonight.
You can be hard. You can be hard.
I want you to tell us why and when people can expect to vote for you for a labor commissioner.
Well, we qualify for public office again in March, mid-March, and the election time is mid-May when you can vote for uh, uh, your state rep, your state senator, governors. That's the primary. The primary is in May. The general election is in November. Now, and we can vote 30 days out from the primary and 30 days out from the general election. That's in November. So I just want you to keep your ears to the ground that in May you have to vote for my wife's favorite public servant, and that's not Barack Obama. That's Lester Jackson. Please vote for Labor Commissioner because it's your money. Let me get it for you. So I'll be happy to do that. So May is the primary time. It's critical that everyone participates, especially in this area, to vote. Um, and then come back again in the general election, which is in November. So critical. Georgia is moving forward, and I'm the best path for Georgia to move forward when it comes to helping disenfranchised people. But more than that, we as a community must move forward, because if we don't work together, and we have to talk about this word inclusion, black, brown, white, we have to be included, all of us, to move Georgia forward. So let's talk about inclusion. Let's talk about working together. And as a team, Georgia will move forward. So thank you very much, Ms. Gibson Carter. Thank you for the audience. Let's all work together. And it was a pleasure to be on your show. And let's invite me back. I'll be happy to come back.
I will. Promise me you'll come back and let's talk more about the hotel motel tax and
let's talk more about the whipping times too, because
yes.
Because the whipping time is so vitally important. Let's talk about the history. We need to talk about Butler Island, where the slaves first came from, and they weren't slaves. They were an enslaved people. They came from Butler Island, and they were sold right here in Chatham County. And that history must be preserved.
Yes.
That legacy of disenfranchisement and needs to be told and told again, because the people that don't know the history is bound to repeat it. I'm Lester Jackson. I'm your senator. Let's move Georgia forward.
Now, one last thing, my cousin and your good friend, Al Williams, told me when I was running that it takes coal to run a train, but gold to run a campaign. How can people give to your campaign?
LesterForGeorgia.com. Just go online, LesterForGeorgia.com. It'll come up. You can volunteer. You can work on the campaign. Al Williams is not only your cousin, but he's my roommate during the Georgia General Assembly. So we are a kindred spirit.
If those walls could talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he is a great soul. He does so much, not only for Liberty County, but this entire state. And you too, Ms. Gibson Carter. Thank you for your advocacy, but more importantly, thank you for your spirit, because you are really trying to help people, and I appreciate that. And most people don't appreciate it, but it's oftentimes that you have to fight the people you're fighting for to make a difference. But keep the fight up. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and you have a great night.
I will.
My best to your wife and kids.
I will. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, Savannah. Senator Lester Jackson for Labor Commissioner. It's been a pleasure being with you here tonight. I look forward to seeing you Monday in some capacity. Until then, good night, and I love you, Savannah.